Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we are going to take a look at a transit sequence that is coming up, which should be really interesting. Mercury is about to turn retrograde in the sign of Libra. At the same time, the Sun is moving into a trine with Uranus right before moving into an opposition with Neptune. And it's a sequence that we're going to spend some time trying to put together and synthesize today. So that's our agenda for the day. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments in the comments section. You guys know when you do that, it helps the channel to grow, so I really appreciate it. Don't forget, I mention this all the time, but do you know there's a whole bunch of people who followed me for 6-7 years when every single daily that I produced was written? And we have had people for years writing in saying, will you ever do written again? And although I've made the transition to video, I'm trying to really, for a good couple of months here, really make people aware of the fact that you can now find transcripts of every daily talk on my website. So that's nightlightastrology.com. I want to send you over there too, because the pre-registration sale that we have right now on the 2 new classes lasts until September 12th. That means you just have a couple more days to go with this sale. People have asked, if we will extend it again or offer during the Kickstarter. Haven't thought about it yet. I usually all of the classes are included in the Kickstarter at a discounted rate, so I'm sure it'll be in there. Will it be the exact same price? I don't know yet. Your best bet is to, pick up the sale price before it ends, if you can do it on the 12th. So on that note, I'm going to take you over to the website and just remind you, the main course that I'm really trying to promote is Roots and Spheres, which is a class that begins in January of 2023. My wife Ashley and I are leading it, and this is a deep dive into the astrology of 2023 through new and full moon gatherings that we will be hosting in order to talk about the astrology of the month and also to couple our experience of the monthly astrology with daily practices, rituals of transformation, and working with specific plant teachers that we're going to be dieting. Plant teachers are amazing. Most people know that I came to astrology because I worked with plant medicine in the Amazon for 10 years. And the plant wisdom of this planet, did you know, has always been paired with astrology. There have been astrological and planetary correspondences with planets that are really old, like 2,000 years plus old. So what we're going to be doing is really trying to take Earth intelligence along with celestial intelligence and blend them together so that we can do more intentional work in the year ahead when it comes to personal growth, transformation, and so forth. I think that my channel is good at trying to, gently nudge people toward making astrology more spiritual. This is something that is going to take it to a whole nother level. And I think you'll also, if you haven't ever seen my wife teach herbal medicine, she is absolutely phenomenal teacher and herbalist. So I think you guys will enjoy it. We're also just finishing up the community herbal medicine garden that you guys helped us build through the Kickstarter. All of the medicine we develop in there and everything we do in there will be for the betterment of community and students. And we're not selling anything that comes from the garden. We're giving all the medicine away. We're going to find all sorts of innovative ways of doing that. So anyway, Roots and Spheres starts in January. You got to sign up now using the early bird rate if you want to save a couple $100 off. There is a payment plan and there's tuition assistance if you need it. Now, the other class that's starting in the new year is the Masterclass series. Now, the Masterclass series is for people who want to dive deeper into some specialized topics in Hellenistic astrology. This assumes you have a background in Hellenistic astrology, preferably my own courses, because a lot of the material I'll be teaching follows on earlier stages of curriculum in my first and second year programs. But you're welcome to take the class if you have a background in ancient astrology. The Mysteries of the Moon Cycle will be the Winter Masterclass series, 4 classes. The spring class will be Morning Star, Evening Star, the cycles of Venus and Mercury. Zen and the Art of Zodiacal releasing in the summer, and Unlocking Temperament and Personality in the birth chart in the fall. There's 4 classes for each, 16 classes on the year. You can save several $100s off with the early bird rate again, which lasts until the 12th of this month. So just at the beginning of next week, is you have just a couple days left. And then there is a payment plan, tuition assistance. If you wanted to a la carte and take just one of the classes, you could do that too. It's a little bit more expensive. It's better if you take all 4 of them in terms of the cost. But yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you in that program as well. Okay, now let's dive into it. This is a really interesting series of transits. And so we're looking at, we're just coming out of a full moon, and we are looking at the sun in Virgo, trining Uranus in Taurus. So this is happening on September 11th over the weekend. So I want to prep us for it now. I'm going to put up the real-time clock and we will have a look. All right, here's the real time. And what I want to do is point out the confluence of energies that are coming together right now. So you can see right here is the sun. And you can see a couple of things. Here's Neptune, here's Uranus, and then I also want to highlight that Mercury is up here about to turn retrograde. So let's look at these connections now. So the sun over the weekend by the 11th will trine Uranus in Taurus. It will then start moving into the opposition with Neptune, which we will talk about next week, but I'm going to talk about it today a little bit as a part of the overall vibe of this combination, because this trine from the sun to Uranus is also happening as Mercury is about to start moving backward in the sign of Libra. Now, what's nice about this is that although Venus is in its fall and coming under the beams of the sun in Virgo, they are in each other's signs. So they have what's called mutual reception, which means that they're in cahoots. They're working together right now. And the theme of cooperation, diplomacy, working things out, facing difficult moments of negotiation, sort of in the air in general. We've talked about that a lot lately with Mercury is also retrograding back into an opposition with Jupiter and Aries. It's a really interesting dynamic. And what I want to do today is lay out 3 themes that I think you are likely to see over the weekend and into next week as Mercury turns retrograde, the sun trines Uranus, the sun starts heading toward Neptune, Mercury's retrograde starts heading toward Jupiter. It's just this intense series of events. And so I'm just going to try to lay out 3 big themes that I think you will notice, along with 3 helpful reminders that go along with these 3 themes, basically. And don't forget these 3 ways of handling these 3 themes. So I hope that you will, hope you'll find this useful and interesting. Okay, so first of all, 3 themes. Now, when looking at this, you have to put it all together, right? The sun's trine to Uranus, along with Mercury's retrograde, and Mercury being in cahoots with Venus right now, while Mercury's also going into an opposition with Jupiter, so kind of a potential hard negotiations that might be happening. How do you put that all together? What does it mean? Well, the first theme that I come up with is revision, the revision. We already have revision as a theme with Mercury turning retrograde in the sign of Libra, especially going into the opposition with Jupiter and Aries. You can just feel the potential for a conflict of ideas. This opposition has already passed over, so now it's coming back, which means we might be going back and forth over something that we've already been dealing with. What I like about this retrograde moment with the mutual reception with Venus and the sun's trine to Uranus is suddenly the idea can appear. Wait, I've got it. This is how we fix it. This is the revision that's needed. Now that could be within a relationship. It could be at work or on a project or in a creative transmission that you're in the process of. It could be with regard to something involving parenting or your kid's placement in a classroom at school. But if there has been this, we're trying to work something out, I'm trying to figure out how to do something or how to, like, what's the workaround here? Or you're sitting there, like the thinker, and you're staring at a problem. Sun in earthy Virgo, trine Uranus and Taurus, as Mercury's retrograding in mutual reception with Venus in Virgo, right? It strikes me as, aha, I've got an idea or a proposal. We're going back over something and I've got the thing that will fix it. Okay, so that could result, but I think there's one way in which this transit plays out, which has something to do with a proposed solution to a problem, a proposed revision, or a way of going back over something with the intention to break through a barrier. And I see that as just the broadest synthesis of all of these planetary transits at once. The second theme is the epiphany, which is similar, and I was kind of mentioning it like the aha moment that leads to here's how we solve the problem. But This could be something that maybe isn't related to redoing something or a workaround or trying to work through a block or a barrier, but represents an entirely new idea, an entirely new direction, almost like saying, you know what, rather than working on this, let's go over here. Let's do something totally different. So the appearance of a new or original idea or way of doing something that hasn't been proposed before, that represents something brand new, but it may take some convincing, or you may have to persuade someone to get on board, or you may have to go into an immediate place of hard negotiating on behalf of this new inspiration that's coming through. So the epiphany, the aha moment, immediately, though, might face some opposition or some tension or some hard negotiating. So I would watch for that. But revision is the big revision or the big epiphany. Either way, right after, the potential of Mercury opposing Jupiter could be, okay, well, we still need a meeting of the minds, or there's still some kind of tense negotiating that I have to work my way through. Theme number 3 would be the disruption. This would be where something completely out of the blue, or in Uranian fashion, comes along and says, okay, here's something completely out of left field, something you weren't anticipating, you weren't thinking about. It's not really an epiphany. It's not really about revising or solving a problem. It's just the unexpected curveball of fortune and fate, the twist that you never could have anticipated, and the way that it suddenly dictates a complete course change for you, a relationship, a job, some area of your life. And then it becomes about managing it, reacting to it, working with the stress or the sort of shock waves of it, and then adjusting. So the disruption comes in, and then right afterwards, still, it could impact us in a way of like, okay, how do I adapt to something totally that I was not seeing coming, that really wasn't a part of me, or a process of trying to, an inspiration, an insight, a revision, some process that I'm in the midst of could get a sudden adjustment, right? But then this is more about something outside of us happening, something around us happening in the environment that's like, whoa, couldn't have seen that coming. And then immediately we have to adapt and work through it somehow. And it could be a little tense doing so. I think that with the Earth, it's likely that this is about that this is not just mental. This is not just emotional or psychological, that there's something very hands-on, structural, real life, earthy change. It's about dealing with the actual form and shape and substance of things. So I think these 3 themes, broadly speaking, are it. Now, the other thing that I would just throw into all of this, remember that in the background next week, the sun will be pushing through an opposition with Neptune, which means that there's also going to be questions about the real and the ideal. Now, the real is just however things are, and the ideal is the image that we're hoping that something can become or aim toward or represent. And it's not bad to have an ideal, a dream, a fantasy, a hope, a wish. The imaginal is what dreams life along, and we absolutely need it. It's vital. It's life-giving. It's soulful. On the other hand, we have to learn to appreciate disappointment. That, if the thing the imagination dreams could be perfectly manifested, there would be no more need for the imagination itself. And we don't want that. We want to keep. So it's about, in a sense, next week there's this follow-up to all of this that has to do with wrestling with our expectations, with the beautiful side of fantasy and the dark side of fantasy. So just keep that in mind. Well, there's 3 helpful reminders that I think go along with these 3 themes. And the first one is to be hooked on more than a feeling. Fantasy is at its worst in our life, in my opinion, when we get addicted to the feeling of hope, right? Like, oh, I want something to be a certain way, or I dream about doing this, or I dream about this kind of world or this kind of life or these kinds of activities or these kinds of relationships, and I can feel the thing I want, right? And then we get addicted to that feeling, and we don't ever take steps to create that. Now, not that anything can be perfect. There's always some discrepancy between our imagined hopes and desires and wishes and what actually comes to pass. But it's really important right now with the earthiness of the sun trine Uranus, that what Mercury and Venus are trying to work out cooperatively, but then simultaneously with the sun opposing Neptune. It's important that we not throw anything out that isn't perfect and just stay hooked on our addiction to hoping for something perfect. So there's some compromise, some ability to, like, have you ever made a piece of art, and as it is coming out and you realize that it's not quite what you had in mind, you have a choice. You either scrap it or you start appreciating the beauty of what is coming out. And you see how, even though on one level it's a derivation of the image you had in mind that you were trying to create, on another level, somehow the mangled thing coming out is just precious to you. A little bit of that we need, so that we don't just stay hooked on the feeling, we allow the feeling to come into form, and that we celebrate the form, even if it's not a perfect match for the feeling or fantasy, because then there's really a bridge between above and below, between the ethereal, the dream, and the imaginal, and the substantive and material. There's some mutual correspondence happening. 2 is to anticipate the timing. Sun trine Uranus, Mercury retrograde opposite Jupiter, the sun coming into an opposition with Neptune. A lot of big, powerful energies mentally, and but the potential for idealism is really strong, and charisma and movement based on that quick, sudden burst of energy, and the disruptiveness of Uranus. And the trines are very positive, very Jupiterian. They mobilize things, especially in earth signs, right? But it's really important that we listen very carefully for the right timing, that we're measured and careful with knowing when to act and how much to say or how little to say. So the feelings, the feelings, the energy, the insights can be really big and strong, and we can still walk mindfully through each moment and anticipate when is the right time, how much energy, how little to exert in a given situation. So I would just say anticipate the timing. Maybe another way of saying this is stay mindful. These energies are big, but that doesn't mean that you have to get swept up in them. You can manage them in a way that is peaceful and interesting and artful management of energies. It's creative. It's not just about control. It's creative. It's participatory, but it's not getting swept up in them in a kind of manic pace. 3, be considerate. Consider the bigger picture. Consider 10 years from now. Consider 5 years from now. Consider all the people involved. Consider their feelings. Consider yourself and how you really feel. These are energies that are very easy because they're fast and big and bright, and there's a sense of urgency behind the opposition between Mercury and Jupiter and Aries. And to be considerate means to step back and look at the context, the total context. And when you do that, there's omens and signs and oracular presences that start showing you more of what you need to know in order to make the best possible choices. If you're not considering, listening, taking everything into account, it's likely that the choice you make will be closer to an unhealthy, selfish one than something that is truly, deeply self-soothing, self-healing, self-gratifying, while also being sensitive to the ecology of other people and things around you. So these are all, to me, these are things that the Tao Te Ching teaches, that the I Ching teaches. So these, just so you know, all of these themes and reminders came from my I Ching meditation today, as well as my Tao Te Ching reading. And as I was reading them, and I asked the I Ching specifically about these energies, and these were sort of the themes that came back. Sometimes I tell you guys like which hexagrams I'm looking at, and sometimes, and they're just in the way that I present the teachings for the day. Anyway, hope you guys find these useful. I would love to hear your stories. This is a big series of transits coming right off a full moon. So hashtag grabbed, or grabbed at nightlightastrology.com if you prefer to be private with your sharing. But yeah, I mean, use that hashtag and tell your story. Tell us how the planets are showing up. It'd be good to hear from all of you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share a comment, and it helps the channel to grow. So I hope that this was useful for you guys today. And don't forget, you got over the weekend to sign up for the new classes. Hope to see some of you in the Roots and Spheres program or master classes coming up soon. Until Monday, take it easy, everyone. Bye.